The burlap sack smelled like old grain and shame. Mara Lorne couldn't see the men bidding on her, but she could hear them, their laughter sharp as winter wind, their voices thick with whiskey and cruelty. One called her the sack-faced gamble. Another said he wouldn't pay 2 coins for damaged goods. Then boots hit wooden floor. Heavy, deliberate. A voice cut through the noise. Low, tired, final. I'll take her. And everything changed. Before we begin, please subscribe and stay until the end of this story. Comment which city you're watching from. I want to see how far Mara's journey travels. The trading post stank of tobacco and desperation. Mara stood with 4 other women, hands bound with rope that bit into her wrists. The burlap sack over her head made breathing hard. Through the weave, she could make out shapes, blurred figures circling. "This one's sturdy," a merchant barked. 16. Good teeth. Hips made for babies. Mara's stomach turned. Sold 20 silver to the gentleman from Copper Ridge. A girl whimpered. Footsteps dragged. A door slammed. Mara's knees threatened to buckle, but she locked them. She wouldn't fall. Not here. Next up. The merchant's voice shifted, gained mockery. "Well, boys, here's a mystery package. The sack-faced girl. Her uncle said she's useful. Can cook, clean, mend. But he wouldn't show her face, so I ain't either. Bid at your own risk." Laughter erupted. "What's wrong with her?" Scarred, burned. Probably ugly as sin. "I ain't paying for a pig and a poke." The merchant chuckled. Starting bid 2 silver coins. Anyone. Silence. Her uncle's words echoed. "You're a burden, girl. At least this way you'll be someone else's problem." 1 silver. Come on, gents. More laughter. "I'll give you a copper for the entertainment value." Mara's hands curled into fists. She wanted to scream, to rip the sack off and spit in their faces. "No takers. All right, I'll—" The door opened. Cold air rushed in. The room fell quiet. Boots crossed the floor. Slow, steady. "Help you, stranger?" the merchant asked. "Lamp oil, and salt if you have it." The voice was deep, rough-edged, but not unkind. "Got both. Anything else?" A pause. Mara could feel eyes on her, not leering but searching. "What's happening here?" "Bride auction. Monthly event. These ladies need homes, and these fine gentlemen need—" "I can see what they need." The stranger's voice hardened. "The girl in the sack. Why's she covered?" "Uncle didn't want to show her off. Said she's— well, he didn't specify. But she can work." "And nobody's bidding." "Not yet, no." Another pause. Mara's heart hammered. "How much?" The merchant perked up. "Well, seeing as there's no competition, 5 silver. Your starting bid was 2. Supply and demand, friend. 3 silver, final offer. 4, and she's yours. 3, or I walk out that door and you're stuck with her till next month." The merchant grumbled. "Fine, 3 silver, but you take her as is, no returns." Coins clinked. Mara's world tilted. "Can you walk?" the stranger asked her directly. Mara nodded. "Then follow me." Rough hands untied her wrists. Blood rushed back into her fingers. She stumbled forward blind. Cold hit her like a slap outside. Snow crunched. Wind howled. "Stop here," the stranger said. She stopped. "I'm going to take that off now. All right." She nodded. His hands were careful, lifting the burlap up and away without yanking. Light blinded her. She blinked hard. When her vision cleared, she found herself staring at a man who looked like the mountain itself had carved him. Tall, broad-shouldered, beard dark and shot through with gray. Lines around his eyes that spoke of hard years. But it was his eyes that stopped her brown, deep-set unreadable. He looked at her face. She waited for it, the flinch, the disappointment, the regret. But he didn't flinch. He just looked at her gaze steady and nodded once. "You hurt?" "No, sir." "Hungry?" "Yes, sir." "Can you ride?" I've never." "Can you hold on?" "I think so." He turned toward a large black horse, pulling a wool blanket from the saddlebag. "Put this around you." Mara took the blanket with shaking hands. The man mounted in one smooth motion, then extended his hand. "Foot on the stirrup. I'll pull you up." She hesitated. "I won't hurt you." Something in his voice made her believe him. She took his hand. He pulled, she pushed, and suddenly she was behind him, clinging to his coat. "Hold tight. Don't let go." The horse lunged forward. They rode for hours. Wind screamed. Snow whipped. Mara pressed closer to the man's back, using him as a shield. He didn't complain. Her mind raced. Who was this man? Where was he taking her? What would he expect? Her uncle's voice. "Men only want one thing from women like you." But this man hadn't touched her beyond pulling her onto the horse, hadn't asked her name. As the sun descended behind the peaks, a cabin appeared. Small, rough-hewn logs, smoke curling from the chimney. The man brought the horse to a stop and dismounted. He helped her down, hands firm on her waist, then immediately let go. "Inside, fire's going." Mara followed. Warmth hit her, first blessed warmth from a fire crackling in a stone hearth. One main room. Table, 2 chairs, bed in the corner, shelves lined with supplies. Everything neat. Everything in its place. The man hung his coat, then gestured to the fire. "Warm yourself." She moved toward the hearth, holding her hands out. The man moved around with quiet efficiency, setting down his purchases, checking firewood, filling a kettle. "What's your name?" "Mara Lorne, sir." "Stop calling me sir. Name's Elias Ren." "Yes." He set the kettle on a hook over the fire. "You said you can cook." "Yes." "Good. Dried meat in that barrel, potatoes in the bin, onions by the door. Make stew." It wasn't a question. Mara nodded and moved toward the supplies. For the next hour she worked while Elias tended the horse, brought in firewood, repaired something in the corner. He moved like a man used to silence. She chopped potatoes and onions, added them to the kettle with dried meat, salt water. The stew began to bubble. When Elias came back inside, he washed his hands and sat. "It'll be ready soon," Mara said quietly. He nodded. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Elias spoke. "I want you to understand something. I didn't come to that trading post looking for a wife. I came for lamp oil." Mara's hand stilled. "But I heard what they were saying about you. Heard them laugh. Heard that merchant treat you like you weren't even human." He paused. "I've seen enough cruelty. Didn't need to see more." She turned to look at him. "So here's how this works. You'll stay here. Cook, clean, help with what needs helping. In return, you get a roof, food, safety. I won't touch you. Won't hurt you. Won't ask anything except honest work. That's all? That's all. And if you want to leave, you're free to go. But I'd recommend waiting till spring. These mountains'll kill you in winter." Mara stared at him. Men didn't just help. Not in her experience. Why? Elias met her gaze. "Because somebody should have helped you a long time ago, and they didn't." Her chest tightened. "The stew's ready." "Then let's eat." They ate in silence. The stew was simple but hot. Mara watched as Elias took his first bite, waiting. He chewed thoughtfully, then nodded. "Good. Real good." Relief flooded through her. When they finished, Elias stood and moved to the bed. He pulled it away from the wall, revealing a small storage space. "Blankets in here. You take the bed tonight. I'll sleep by the fire." "No, I can't." "You can, and you will. You've had a hell of a day. You need proper rest." He arranged blankets by the fire. Mara watched him. "Elias." He looked up. "Thank you." He nodded once, then turned away. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow we'll figure out the rest." She moved to the bed. The mattress was stuffed with straw, but it felt like heaven. As she lay there, she could hear Elias settling by the fire. Wood crackling, wind howling outside. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt something strange. Safe. Mara woke to the sound of an axe splitting wood. Pale light filtered through the window. The fire had burned down to embers. Elias's blankets were already folded. She sat up, then remembered everything. The trading post, the burlap sack, the ride, the man who'd bought her freedom. She rose quickly and moved to the window. Outside, Elias worked in the snow axe, rising and falling. Each strike split logs clean through. Mara turned and surveyed the cabin. The water barrel was low. The fire needed building. The floor could use sweeping. She set to work. By the time Elias came back inside, arms full of split wood, she had the fire roaring, water heating for coffee, the cabin swept clean. He stopped in the doorway, looking at the transformed space. "Didn't have to do all that." "I wanted to." He set the wood down, stacking it carefully. "There's coffee beans in the tin. Grinder next to it. You know how." "Yes." "Make it strong." While she prepared coffee, Elias washed his face and hands. When she handed him a steaming cup, he took it with a nod. They drank in silence. "I need to check the trap lines today. You'll be alone for a few hours. Can you handle that?" "Yes." "Don't go outside unless you have to, and if you do, don't go far." "I understand." He drained his coffee, set the cup down, reached for his coat. "Elias?" "Yeah." "Yesterday at the trading post, why did you really buy me?" For a long moment, he didn't answer. Finally, he said, "I had a wife once. Sarah. She died 3 winters ago." Mara's breath caught. "That's all I'm saying about it right now." He pulled on his coat. "I'll be back before dark." And then he was gone. The hours passed slowly. Mara kept herself busy mending a tear in one of Elias's shirts, organizing the food stores, preparing another stew. But her mind kept returning to his words. "I had a wife once." She looked around the cabin with new eyes. The careful way everything was arranged. The second cup still sitting on the shelf, never used. And there, hanging on a peg by the bed, a woman's shawl. Faded blue. Delicate embroidery along the edges. Mara reached out, fingers hovering over the fabric, but didn't touch it. This was a dead woman's home. She should have felt like an intruder. But instead she felt honored, like she'd been trusted with something precious. When Elias returned just before sunset, he brought 2 rabbits already skinned. "Caught these. We'll smoke them tomorrow." "I can do that, if you show me how." He looked at her. Something like approval flickered in his eyes. "I'll teach you." That night, they ate together again. After dinner, Elias pulled a worn Bible from the shelf. "I read before bed. You're welcome to join or not." Mara hesitated. "I'd like to join." He opened the book. In the firelight, he read aloud. His voice was steady. The words, familiar words her mother had read to her once before the world had gone hard and cold. When he finished, he closed the book and bowed his head. Mara found herself doing the same. "Lord, thank you for this day, for this food, for this shelter. Watch over us through the night. Amen." "Amen," Mara whispered. It was the first prayer she'd spoken in years. 3 days passed. The rhythm of the cabin became Mara's rhythm. She woke when Elias woke, worked while he worked, rested when he rested. She learned how to smoke meat, how to identify animal tracks in the snow, how to predict weather by the way the wind shifted. Elias was a patient teacher. And slowly, she began to notice things. The warmest blanket always ended up near her side of the cabin. Her worn shoes repaired overnight without mention. He always served her first at meals, even though he was the one who'd worked outside all day. Small things, quiet things, things that said, "I see you," without words. On the fourth morning, everything changed. Mara was kneading bread when she heard something hit the floor behind her. She turned. Elias stood by the shelf, staring down at the broken pieces of a ceramic cup. The second cup. The one that had sat unused since she'd arrived. His face had gone pale. "I'm sorry," he said, voice rough. I wasn't paying attention." Mara set down the dough and crossed to him. "It's all right." "No, it's not." He knelt, picking up the pieces with shaking hands. "This was hers. Sarah's. Her mother made it. It's the only thing I had left that—" His voice broke. Mara knelt beside him. "Elias." He didn't look at her, just kept gathering pieces faster now, like if he collected them all quickly enough he could undo what had happened. "Elias, stop." He stopped. "Look at me." Slowly he raised his eyes to hers. "I can fix this," Mara said quietly. "I know how to mend pottery. My mother taught me. It won't be the same, but it'll hold. It'll still work. You can fix it." "Yes." Something in his face cracked. Not broke, just opened. "Why would you do that?" "Because she mattered to you, and you—" Mara's voice caught. "You matter to me." The words hung between them. Elias stared at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw vulnerability in his eyes. Raw and unguarded. "Thank you," he whispered. She nodded and began gathering the pieces carefully. That afternoon, while Elias checked the trap lines, Mara worked on the cup. She mixed ash and pine resin into a paste, fitting the pieces together like a puzzle, sealing the cracks with patient precision. When Elias returned at sunset, she held out the mended cup. He took it, turning it slowly in his hands. The cracks were visible, thin silver lines running through the ceramic, but it was whole. "It's beautiful," he said. "It's broken." "No." He looked up at her. "It's mended. There's a difference." And in that moment, Mara understood what he was really saying. That night, as they sat by the fire after dinner, Elias finally spoke about Sarah. "We met when I was 23. Her father sold her to me for 30 silver. His voice was quiet. "She was terrified. Wouldn't speak, wouldn't eat. Just sat in that corner and stared at the wall." Mara listened. "Took her 3 weeks before she'd even look at me. Another month before she'd speak, but I waited. I figured—" He paused. "I figured she'd been hurt enough. Didn't need more hurting from me." "What changed?" "One morning I woke up, and she was making breakfast. Just stood at the stove cooking eggs like it was the most natural thing in the world. When I asked her why, she said, 'Because you waited. And nobody ever waited for me before.'" Mara's throat tightened. "We had 6 good years together. Then the fever came." Elias stared into the fire. "She died in 3 days. So fast I didn't even have time to—" He stopped. "Before she went, she made me promise something. Said if I ever saw someone hurting the way she'd hurt, I'd help them. So when you heard them laughing at me, I heard them laughing at her, and I couldn't walk away." Silence settled between them. Then Mara said, "I'm not her. I know. I don't want to be her replacement." "You're not." Elias finally looked at her. "You're you, and that's enough." Something warm unfurled in Mara's chest, something that felt dangerously like hope. "Elias, you said you have a son." His expression shifted. "Micah, he's 6, lives in town with Sarah's sister." "Why doesn't he live here?" "He's been sick since his mother died. Something in his lungs. The doctor in town can treat him better than I can up here." His jaw tightened. "But I'm bringing him home soon. Few more weeks. Once he's strong enough." I'd like to meet him." Elias studied her face. "He might not take to you right away. He's protective of his mother's memory." "I understand. But if you're willing to try." "I'm willing." He nodded slowly. "Then we'll bring him home." The storm hit 2 days later. Mara had never seen snow like this. It fell in thick curtains, erasing the world. Wind screamed around the cabin, rattling the shutters. Elias worked constantly, checking the roof, making sure the firewood stayed dry, reinforcing the door. "How long will it last?" Mara asked. 2 days. Maybe 3. We've got enough supplies." But that night the temperature dropped so low that frost formed on the inside of the windows. Mara woke shivering. The fire had burned down dangerously low. She rose quickly, moving to add wood, but her hands were clumsy with cold. "Here." Elias's voice came from behind her. He took the wood from her hands and built up the fire. Flames caught and grew. "You should have woken me. You need sleep." "So do you." He didn't answer, just added more wood until the fire roared. But even with the fire rebuilt, the cold was relentless. "Mara," Elias said carefully, "it's too cold tonight. You'll freeze in that bed." "I'm fine." "You're turning blue. Bring your blankets to the fire. We'll both sleep here. Warmer that way." She hesitated. "I'll stay on my side. You have my word." She gathered her blankets and brought them to the fire. They arranged the blankets in a makeshift barrier, then lay down on opposite sides. For a long time neither spoke. Then in the darkness Mara whispered, "Elias." "Yeah." "Why did you really buy me the real reason?" Silence stretched. Then, "Because I looked at you standing there with that sack on your head, and I saw Sarah. Saw her in that same place, scared and alone with nobody who gave a damn." His voice roughened. "I thought if I could go back, if I could save her from that day, I would. But I can't. So I saved you instead." Tears burned in Mara's eyes. "You didn't save me. You saw me. There's a difference." "What's that?" "Saving is about the person doing the saving. Seeing is about the person being seen." She wiped her eyes. "You made me feel like a person again. Not a burden, not a curse, just a person." In the firelight she saw Elias turn his head toward her. "You were always a person, Mara. Some people are just too blind to see it." Her breath caught. And there, in a cabin buried in snow with a storm raging outside and a fire burning between them, something shifted. Not love, not yet, but recognition. 2 broken souls who'd survived when the world wanted them dead. 2 mended pieces that might someday fit together. The storm broke on the 3rd day. Morning light flooded the cabin, almost blinding after so much darkness. Mara woke to find Elias already up, standing at the window, staring out at the transformed world. "Elias." He didn't turn. "I need to go to town today." "Is something wrong?" "Got a letter yesterday, before the storm hit. Didn't want to worry you during the weather." He finally looked at her. "It's Micah. He's worse. The doctor says—" His voice failed him. Mara rose immediately. "Then we go now." "It's a hard ride. Dangerous after a storm like this." "I don't care. If your son needs you, we go." Something flickered in Elias's eyes. Gratitude, maybe. Or relief that he didn't have to make this journey alone. "Pack light. We leave in 10 minutes. They rode hard. The horse struggled through snow that came up to its chest in places. Twice they had to dismount and lead the animal through drifts. Mara's legs burned. Her lungs ached from the cold. But she didn't complain, because every time she looked at Elias's face, she saw a father terrified of losing his son. And she would walk through hell itself before she let him face that fear alone. After 4 hours of brutal riding, the town appeared a cluster of buildings huddled against the mountain smoke rising from chimneys. Elias didn't slow down. He rode straight to a small house on the edge of town and dismounted before the horse had fully stopped. Mara scrambled down after him. He pounded on the door. Margaret, it's Elias. The door flew open. A woman in her 40s, face drawn with exhaustion, stared at him. Thank God you're here. He's been asking for you. Won't eat, won't sleep. Just keeps saying. Her voice broke. He keeps asking when his papa's coming home. Elias pushed past her into the house. Mara followed. In a small bedroom at the back, a little boy lay in bed so pale he looked like a ghost. His breathing came in shallow, rattling gasps. Micah! Elias crossed to the bed in 3 strides and dropped to his knees. Micah, I'm here. Papa's here. The boy's eyes fluttered open. Papa. Yeah, son. I'm right here. You came. Course I came. Soon as I got word. Elias took the boy's small hand in his large one. I'm not leaving. Not again. Micah's gaze drifted past his father to where Mara stood in the doorway. Who's that? Elias glanced back at Mara, then at his son. That's Mara. He paused. She's a friend. She lives with me now up at the cabin. Micah studied her with eyes too old for his young face. Are you gonna be my new mama? The question hung in the air. Elias opened his mouth, but no words came out. Mara stepped forward, slowly crossing to the bed. She knelt beside Elias, meeting the boy's gaze directly. I don't know yet, she said honestly. But I'd like to be your friend first, if that's okay with you. Micah considered this. What if I don't want a new mama? Then I'll just be Mara. And that's okay too. The boy's expression softened slightly. You're pretty. Thank you. My mama was pretty too. I bet she was beautiful. She was the most beautiful. Micah's eyes filled with tears. I miss her. I know you do. Mara reached out slowly, telegraphing the movement, and placed her hand over his. And you always will. That's how love works. It doesn't go away even when people do. A tear slid down Micah's cheek. Elias looked at Mara, and in his eyes she saw something she'd never seen before. Wonder. Mara's right, son, Elias said quietly. Your mama's always going to be with you, in here. He tapped Micah's chest. Nobody can take that away. Micah nodded, then coughed a deep, wet sound that made both adults wince. I'm tired, Papa. Then sleep. I'll be right here when you wake up. Promise. You won't leave. Not a chance. The boy's eyes drifted closed. Elias stayed kneeling by the bed, holding his son's hand, and Mara stayed kneeling beside him. And there, in that small room, smelling of sickness and fear, they waited together. Not as husband and wife, not as strangers, but as two people who understood that sometimes love was just showing up. Three days passed in that house. Mara helped Margaret care for Micah, while Elias sat vigil by his son's bed. She cooked meals that the boy wouldn't eat. She changed sweat-soaked sheets. She sang soft lullabies her mother had taught her. And slowly, impossibly, Micah began to improve. On the 4th morning, he ate 3 bites of porridge. On the 5th day, he asked for a story. On the 6th, he smiled. And on the 7th day, the doctor came and said the fever had broken. He's not out of the woods yet, the doctor warned. But he's turned a corner. Keep him warm, keep him fed, and he might just make it. Elias's knees nearly buckled with relief. That night, after Micah had fallen into a peaceful sleep, Elias and Mara stepped outside into the cold. Stars blazed overhead. The air was sharp and clean. Thank you, Elias said quietly. For what? For coming with me. For helping. For... He stopped struggling with words. For seeing him. The way you saw me. Mara looked up at the stars. He's a good boy, Elias. Sarah raised him well. She did. And he loves you so much it hurts to watch sometimes. The feeling's mutual. They stood in silence. Then Mara said, When we take him home to the cabin, things are going to change. I know. He's going to need time, to adjust, to trust me. I know that too. and I'm going to need your help. I've never been a mother before." Elias turned to look at her. "You've also never been seen before, but you're figuring that out just fine." She met his gaze. "Are we really doing this? Becoming a family?" "I don't know what we're becoming, Mara. I just know I can't imagine going back to that cabin without you in it." Her heart stuttered. "Elias, I'm not asking you to be Sarah. I'm not asking you to love me or even to stay forever. I'm just asking—" He took a breath. "Would you be willing to try to see if this thing between us, whatever it is, might be worth building on?" Mara thought about the past weeks, thought about the cabin that had become home, thought about the man who'd seen her when she was invisible, thought about the little boy who needed someone to sing him lullabies and tell him his mother would always love him. "Yes," she whispered, "I'm willing to try." Elias's expression transformed not into happiness exactly, but into something deeper, hope maybe, or possibility. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was calloused and warm. And Mara didn't pull away. They stood there under the stars, two broken people holding on to each other, and for the first time since her mother had died, Mara thought, "Maybe I'm not broken anymore. Maybe I'm just mending. And maybe that's enough." They brought Micah home on a Tuesday. The boy sat in front of Elias on the horse wrapped in blankets, like a small precious package. Mara rode behind them on a borrowed mare from Margaret, her hands gripping the reins with white-knuckled determination. The journey took twice as long as usual. Elias stopped every hour to check on Micah to make sure he wasn't too cold, wasn't too tired, wasn't slipping back into that terrible fever sleep. "I'm fine, Papa," Micah said, each time, but his voice was thin as paper. When the cabin finally came into view, Mara felt something loosen in her chest. Home. The word had never meant much to her before. Now it meant everything. Elias dismounted carefully, lifting Micah down with the gentleness of a man handling something infinitely fragile. The boy's legs buckled when his feet hit the ground. "I got you." Elias scooped him up. "Let's get you inside." Mara hurried ahead to open the door. The cabin was cold. The fire had died days ago, but it was still standing still, whole still theirs. She moved immediately to the hearth building up, kindling coaxing flames to life, while Elias settled Micah on the bed. "This is where you live?" Micah asked, looking around with fever-bright eyes. "This is where we live," Elias corrected. "You, me, and Mara." "It's small. It's warm, that's what matters." Mara got the fire going and turned to find Micah watching her. "Can you really sing?" the boy asked suddenly. She blinked. "What?" "Aunt Margaret said you sang to me when I was sick. But I don't remember it." "I did sing. You were sleeping. Will you sing now?" Mara glanced at Elias, who nodded encouragement. She crossed to the bed and sat on the edge, careful not to jostle the boy. Then softly she began to hum the lullaby her mother had taught her. The one about the mountain and the river and the birds that flew between them. Micah's eyes drifted closed. When the song ended, he whispered, "My mama used to sing too." "I know. But she sang different songs." "That's okay. We can remember her songs together, and I can teach you new ones." Micah opened his eyes. "You're not trying to replace her, are you?" The question hit Mara square in the chest. "No, sweetheart. Nobody could replace your mama. I'm just trying to be here, that's all." The boy studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay. Okay. You can stay." Despite everything, the exhaustion, the fear, the weight of the past weeks, Mara smiled. "Thank you." Micah's eyes drifted closed again, and within minutes he was asleep. Elias came to stand beside her, looking down at his son. "He likes you," he said quietly. "He's reserving judgment. That's how he shows he likes you. If he didn't, he wouldn't have asked you to sing." Mara rose from the bed, suddenly aware of how close she was standing to Elias. How easy it would be to lean into him, to let him hold her the way he'd held his son. But she stepped back instead. I should make soup, something light for his stomach. Mara, what? Elias looked at her and something passed between them. Something unspoken, but understood. Nothing. Soup sounds good. She nodded and turned toward the food stores, trying to ignore the way her heart was hammering. That night, they rearranged the cabin. Elias built a small cot for himself in the corner, giving the bed entirely to Micah. Mara insisted on sleeping by the fire on blankets spread across the floor. You should take the bed, Elias argued. Micah needs it more than I do, and you're too tall for that cot as it is. Then we trade off. Tonight you take the cot. Elias, please Mara, let me do this one thing. She relented. As she settled into the narrow cot, listening to Micah's soft breathing and Elias's movements by the fire, she thought about how much had changed in such a short time. Weeks ago, she'd been standing in a trading post with a sack over her head, waiting to be sold to the highest bidder. Now she was here, in a warm cabin, with a man who treated her like she mattered, and a boy who'd asked her to sing. It didn't feel real, but the rough wool of the blanket against her cheek was real. The crackling of the fire was real. The sound of Elias whispering a prayer before bed was real. And for the first time in her life, Mara let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved this. The next morning, Micah woke with questions. Where's the outhouse? 20 paces behind the cabin, Elias said. I'll take you. I can go myself. I'm not a baby. You're also still recovering from a fever that almost killed you. I'm coming with you. Micah scowled, but didn't argue. While they were outside, Mara set about making breakfast. Porridge with dried berries and a drizzle of honey she'd found in the stores. When Elias and Micah returned, the boy's face was pinched with cold, but he was walking on his own. Progress. They ate together at the small table, Elias and Micah in the chairs, Mara standing by the stove with her bowl. Sit down, Elias said. There's only 2 chairs. Then I'll stand. You will not. You've been up half the night checking on Micah. And you were up the other half keeping the fire going. They stared at each other. Micah looked between them, a small smile tugging at his lips. You sound like you're married. Both adults froze. We're not married, Mara said quickly. Then why do you live together? Elias cleared his throat. Because Mara needed a place to stay, and I had room. But Aunt Margaret said, Eat your porridge, Micah. The boy grinned and shoveled a spoonful into his mouth. Mara caught Elias's eye across the table. He looked embarrassed. She probably looked the same. But underneath the embarrassment, there was something else. Something that felt dangerously close to contentment. The days developed a rhythm after that. Elias would wake first, build up the fire check on Micah. Mara would make breakfast while Elias tended the animals. They'd eat together. Then Elias would go about his work checking traps, chopping wood, repairing things that broke while Mara stayed inside with Micah. The boy was slowly regaining his strength. Each day he could walk a little farther. Each day his appetite improved. Each day his laughter came a little easier. And each day he grew more comfortable with Mara. She taught him simple things. How to knead bread dough. How to darn a sock. How to tell when the stew needed more salt just by smelling it. He taught her things too. The names of his carved wooden animals. The stories his mother used to tell him. The exact way she'd braided his hair when he'd worn it long. She'd sit me between her knees, Micah said one afternoon, touching his short-cropped hair. And she'd sing while she worked. Said it made the tangles come out easier. That sounds nice. Papa cut it short after she died. Said it was easier to manage. Do you miss it? The long hair. Micah shrugged. Sometimes, but Papa's probably right. He's not good at braiding. Mara smiled. If you ever want to grow it out again, I can braid. My mother taught me. The boy looked at her with wide eyes. Really? Really? Would you teach me to braid, I mean? So I can remember how Mama did it. Something warm and painful twisted in Mara's chest. I'd be honored. That evening after dinner, Mara sat Micah down and taught him to braid using scraps of yarn. His small fingers fumbled at first, crossing the strands wrong, pulling too tight. Like this, Mara said, guiding his hands. Over, under, over, under. See? Elias watched from across the room, pretending to read his Bible, but not turning a single page. When Micah finally managed a passable braid, he held it up triumphantly. I did it? You did. Your mama would be proud. The boy's smile faltered. You think so? I know so. Micah was quiet for a moment, then said, Mara. Yes. I'm glad you're here. Her throat tightened. I'm glad I'm here too. Across the room, Elias's hands tightened on his Bible. Winter deepened. The snow piled higher. Some days Elias couldn't leave the cabin at all. The drifts were too dangerous, the wind too fierce. Those were the hardest days. 3 people in a small space getting on each other's nerves despite their best efforts. Micah grew restless, cooped up inside. He'd pace the cabin like a caged animal, snapping at both adults. I hate it here, he said one particularly brutal afternoon. I want to go back to Aunt Margaret's. At least there I had other kids to play with. You can go back in spring, Elias said patiently, when it's safe to travel. I don't want to wait till spring. I want to go now. Micah, you don't understand. You and Mara have each other, but I don't have anyone. The words hung in the air. Elias opened his mouth, but Mara spoke first. You're right, she said quietly. We don't understand. Your papa and I are adults. We forget what it's like to be young and stuck inside with nothing to do. Micah stared at her, surprised. But here's what I do understand, Mara continued. You're lonely. You miss your friends. You miss your aunt. And maybe, she took a breath, maybe you miss your mama most of all, and being here in this cabin with us makes it harder, because we're not her. Tears welled in Micah's eyes. And that's okay, Mara said. You're allowed to miss her. You're allowed to be angry that she's gone. You're allowed to hate being stuck here with 2 adults who don't know what they're doing half the time. Mara, Elias said softly. She ignored him, keeping her eyes on Micah. But here's the thing, sweetheart. Your papa loves you more than anything in this world, and she hesitated. I'm learning to love you too, and we're doing the best we can, so maybe you could meet us halfway. Not today, not even tomorrow, but someday, when you're ready. Micah wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. What if I'm never ready? Then we'll keep trying anyway. The boy looked at her for a long moment, then at his father, then back at her. Okay, he whispered. Okay. I'll try, but I can't promise I'll be good at it. Mara smiled through her own tears. None of us are good at it, Micah. We're all just figuring it out as we go. That night when Micah was asleep, Elias pulled Mara aside. What you said to him today. I overstepped. I'm sorry. He's your son, not mine, and I shouldn't have. No. Elias's hand closed around her wrist, stopping her. You didn't overstep. You said exactly what he needed to hear. What I should have said weeks ago, but didn't know how. Mara looked up at him. In the firelight, his face was all shadows and angles. I don't know what I'm doing, Elias. With him. With you. With any of this. Neither do I. Then how do we just keep showing up, like you said. That's all we can do. His hand was still on her wrist, warm, steady. Elias, I need to tell you something. His voice dropped low. And I need you to just listen, okay? Don't say anything until I'm done. Her heart began to race. Okay. When Sarah died, I thought I'd died with her. Thought the best parts of me went into the ground along with her body. I kept breathing, kept moving, but it was just... He struggled for words. It was just going through the motions. Taking care of Micah because I had to, not because I wanted to. Does that make sense?" Mara nodded. "And then I saw you at that trading post, standing there with that sack on your head, and something in me just woke up. Like I'd been asleep for 3 years and suddenly someone shook me awake." His thumb moved against her wrist, probably without him realizing it. "I told myself I was just helping you, doing what Sarah would have wanted, but that wasn't the whole truth." What was the whole truth? The whole truth is that I looked at you and I saw someone who understood what it was like to be invisible, to be unwanted, to be so used to hurt that kindness felt like a trap. He paused. "And I thought maybe she could understand me too. Maybe she could see past the grief and the anger and the guilt and see the man I used to be. The man I want to be again." Tears slid down Mara's cheeks. "I'm not asking you to love me," Elias said. "I'm not even asking you to stay forever. I'm just asking, can you see me the way I see you?" "I already do," Mara whispered. "I have been. Since the day you took that sack off my head." His breath caught. "You want to know what I saw when you looked at me that first time?" She wiped her eyes. "I saw a man who was tired. Bone tired. Tired of being alone, tired of hurting, tired of pretending he was fine when he was breaking into pieces. But I also saw a man who was kind, who was good, who was worth knowing." Mara. "I'm not her Elias. I'm never going to be her. I don't know how to be a wife. I don't know how to be a mother. I'm just—" Her voice broke. "I'm just a girl who spent her whole life being told she wasn't good enough. And now I'm here with you and Micah, and I'm terrified I'm going to ruin everything." "You won't." "How do you know?" "Because you care. Because you show up. Because when Micah said he hated it here, you didn't get defensive. You listened. You understood. You gave him permission to be angry." Elias's free hand came up to cup her face. "That's not someone who ruins things, Mara. That's someone who fixes them." She leaned into his touch and for just a moment let herself imagine what it would be like if this was real. If this wasn't just two broken people clinging to each other in a storm. If this was actually truly a life they were building together. "What are we doing?" she whispered. "I don't know, but I'd like to figure it out. If you're willing." "I'm willing." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, wiping away a tear. And then, slowly giving her every opportunity to pull away, he leaned down and pressed his forehead against hers. They stood like that for a long time. Not kissing, not speaking, just breathing the same air, hearts beating in sync, holding on to each other like lifelines. When they finally pulled apart, Mara felt different. Lighter somehow, like she'd been carrying a weight she didn't know was there, and Elias had helped her set it down. "Get some sleep," he said softly. "Tomorrow's going to be a long day." "Why?" He smiled. "Because tomorrow I'm teaching Micah how to set a snare trap. And you're coming with us. Outside in the snow. Outside in the snow. It's time he learned how to survive out here. And it's time you did too." Mara wanted to argue. Wanted to say she'd be useless, that she'd only slow them down. But instead she found herself nodding. "Okay, we'll go together." "Together," Elias agreed. And in that word, Mara heard a promise. The next morning dawned clear and brutally cold. Elias bundled Micah in layers of wool and fur until the boy could barely move his arms. "I can't breathe," Micah complained. "You'll thank me when your fingers don't freeze off." "My fingers are fine." "They won't be after an hour in this cold. Trust me." Mara dressed in Sarah's old winter coat. Elias had offered it to her weeks ago, but she'd been too afraid to accept. Now she pulled it on without hesitation. It smelled like lavender and wood smoke, like a woman who'd lived and loved and left her mark on this place. "Thank you," Mara whispered to the ghost of Sarah, "for taking care of them before I got here. I promise I'll do my best." They stepped outside into a world transformed by ice. Everything gleamed. The trees looked like they'd been dipped in glass. The snow crunched underfoot with a sound like breaking bones. Micah's eyes went wide. It's beautiful. It's dangerous, Elias corrected. Beauty and danger often go hand in hand out here. Remember that. They walked single file, Elias in front, breaking trail, Micah in the middle, Mara bringing up the rear. Every few steps Elias would stop and point something out. See those tracks, Rabbit? Fresh, maybe an hour old. How can you tell? Micah asked. See how the snow around the edges is still loose. If it was older, the wind would have blown it smooth. And look here, you can see where he stopped to eat. See the little bits of bark. Micah nodded, absorbing every word like gospel. They walked for an hour before Elias found a suitable spot for a snare. A narrow path between two trees worn smooth by animal traffic. This is a game trail, Elias explained. Animals are creatures of habit. They use the same paths over and over. So if we set our trap here, he knelt down showing Micah how to secure the wire, how to disguise it with snow. We're almost guaranteed a catch. What if we catch something big? Micah asked. Like a wolf. This snare's too small for wolves. We'd catch rabbits, maybe a fox if we're unlucky. Why unlucky? Because fox fur is valuable, but fox meat is tough and gamey. Rabbits better eating. Micah helped his father set the snare, his small hands clumsy in their thick mittens. Mara watched, memorizing every step. When the snare was set, Elias stood and brushed snow from his knees. Now we check the other traps. See what we caught overnight. They moved deeper into the forest. Mara's legs burned from pushing through the snow, but she didn't complain. This was important. This was survival. If something happened to Elias, she and Micah would need to know how to feed themselves. The first two traps were empty. The third held a rabbit frozen solid. Good, Elias said, resetting the trap. That's dinner. Can I carry it? Micah asked. You sure it's dead weight? I'm sure. Elias handed over the rabbit. Micah took it solemnly, carrying it like a trophy. They checked 3 more traps, one empty too, with catches before starting the journey back. By the time they reached the cabin, Micah was stumbling with exhaustion. But his face glowed with pride. I helped, he said, as Elias took the rabbits from him. I really helped. You did. You're getting strong, son. Micah beamed. That night, while Elias skinned and dressed the rabbits, Mara worked on dinner, a stew thick with root vegetables and herbs. Micah sat at the table practicing his braiding, with more yarn humming softly to himself. The cabin was warm. The fire crackled. The smell of cooking food filled the air. And Mara thought, this is what home feels like. Not a place, but a feeling. The feeling of being exactly where you're supposed to be. Later, after Micah had fallen asleep and Elias was oiling his traps by the fire, Mara sat down beside him. Thank you, she said. For what? For taking me with you today, for teaching me. You're part of this now. You need to know how to survive. I know, but still. Thank you. He set down the trap he was working on and looked at her. Mara, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Her stomach tightened. All right. Are you happy here? The question caught her off guard. What? Are you happy? Living in this cabin in the middle of nowhere with me and Micah. Is this the life you want? Mara thought about it. Really thought about it. A month ago, she said slowly. I would have said I didn't know what I wanted. That I'd never had the luxury of wanting anything except to survive. She paused. But now, yes, I'm happy. Happier than I've ever been. Even with the hard days, the fights with Micah, the cold and the isolation. Especially with those things, because they're real. They matter. And I matter. For the first time in my life, I wake up in the morning and someone is glad I'm there. Elias's expression softened. More than glad, Mara. What do you mean? He reached out and took her hand. I mean that when I wake up in the morning and see you by the fire, I don't just feel glad. I feel grateful. I feel... He stopped searching for words. I feel like maybe I've been given a second chance, and I don't want to waste it. Her breath caught. Elias? I'm not asking you to marry me, not yet. But I am asking, will you let me court you properly, the way you deserve? Tears sprang to Mara's eyes. Court me. We live together. We raise your son together. Isn't that already? No. Because I want you to choose this. Choose me. Not because you feel obligated or because you have nowhere else to go, but because you want to. I do want to. Then let me do this right. Let me show you that you're worth more than 3 silver coins at a trading post. Let me show you what it looks like when someone values you. Mara couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Is that a yes? Elias asked softly. Yes, she whispered. Yes, you can court me. He smiled a real smile, the first she'd seen from him that wasn't shadowed by grief or worry. And in that moment, Mara understood that maybe she wasn't just surviving anymore. Maybe for the first time in her life, she was actually living. Courting, as it turned out, was complicated when you already lived together. Elias started small. He'd leave wildflowers on Mara's blankets by the fire, frozen blooms he'd somehow found beneath the snow. He'd take over her chores without asking, giving her time to rest. He'd sit beside her in the evenings and read aloud from books he'd kept from before his voice steady and warm. And every night before they said goodnight, he'd ask her the same question. Did I do right by you today? The first time he asked, Mara didn't know how to answer. You don't have to ask me that. Yes, I do. Because I want you to know that your opinion matters, that you matter. So she'd started answering honestly. Some days it was simple. Yes, you did right by me. Other days it was more complicated. You snapped at Micah when he spilled the water. He was trying to help. Elias had looked ashamed. You're right. I'll apologize to him in the morning. And he always did. Always kept his word. Micah watched all of this with the sharp eyes of a child who understood more than adults gave him credit for. One afternoon, while Elias was outside chopping wood, Micah cornered Mara by the stove. Are you going to marry my papa? Mara nearly dropped the pot she was stirring. What? I'm not stupid. I see how he looks at you. How you look at him. Micah. It's okay if you do. I just want to know. Mara set down the pot and knelt so she was eye level with the boy. Your papa and I are figuring things out. Taking it slow. But nothing's going to happen that you don't know about first, I promise. What if I don't want you to marry him? The question hurt, but Mara kept her voice gentle. Then we wouldn't. Not if it made you unhappy. Micah studied her face. Really? Really? You're the most important person in your papa's life. And you're important to me too. So if you're not ready, then we wait. What if I'm never ready? Then we never marry, simple as that. The boy was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I don't not want you to marry him. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement. Micah struggled with the words. I don't want to forget Mama, and I'm scared that if Papa marries you, it means he's forgotten her. Mara's heart broke a little. Oh, sweetheart, your Papa could never forget your Mama. She was the love of his life. She gave him you. How could he ever forget that? But if he loves you, love isn't a pie, Micah. You don't run out of slices. Your Papa loving me doesn't mean he stops loving your Mama. It just means his heart got bigger. Big enough to hold both of us. Tears welled in Micah's eyes. You promise. I promise. And you want to know something else. What? Your Mama loved your Papa so much that she made him promise to find happiness again if she died. She told him to help people who were hurting, to not shut himself away from the world. Mara took Micah's small hands in hers. So when your Papa looks at me with kindness, when he tries to make me smile, he's not betraying your Mama. He's honoring her. He's keeping the promise he made. Micah wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I never thought of it like that. Well, now you can. The boy threw his arms around her neck, hugging her tight. Mara held him, blinking back her own tears. When Elias came back inside, arms loaded with firewood, he found them like that, holding each other by the stove, both with red eyes and running noses. What happened? Nothing, Micah said, pulling back and wiping his face. We were just talking. Elias looked between them, concerned. Good talking or bad talking? Good talking, Mara said softly. Really good talking. Elias set down the wood and crossed to them. He ruffled Micah's hair, then met Mara's eyes over the boy's head. Thank you, he mouthed silently. She nodded. That night, after Micah had gone to sleep, Elias pulled Mara outside. The cold hit like a fist, but the stars overhead were so bright they cast shadows on the snow. What did you two talk about? Elias asked. He wanted to know if we were getting married. Elias went still. What did you tell him? The truth. That we're taking it slow, that nothing would happen without him knowing first, that his opinion matters. And he's scared. Scared that if you love me, it means you've forgotten Sarah. Elias closed his eyes. God, I should have talked to him about this. I should have. You couldn't have known what he was thinking. He's 6. He doesn't always have the words for what he's feeling. What did you say to him? I told him that love isn't a pie, that your heart got bigger, not divided. Elias opened his eyes and looked at her. That's exactly right. I also told him about Sarah's promise, about how she wanted you to find happiness again. You told him that. Was I wrong to? No, you were right. He needed to hear it. Elias ran a hand through his hair. I've been so focused on keeping him alive, on getting him healthy, that I forgot he might be hurting in other ways. You're a good father, Elias. I'm a father who almost missed his son's pain because I was too wrapped up in my own. But you didn't miss it, because I caught it and told you. That's what we do now. We catch each other's blind spots. He looked at her, then really looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. Something deeper than gratitude or affection. Mara, Don't. She held up a hand. Don't say anything you're not ready to say. We're taking it slow, remember? What if I don't want to take it slow anymore? Her breath caught. Elias. What if I want to tell you that every morning I wake up and the first thing I think about is whether you slept well? What if I want to tell you that when you sing to Micah, my chest gets so tight I can barely breathe? What if I want to tell you that I'm falling for you so hard and so fast that it terrifies me? Mara's eyes filled with tears. Then I'd tell you that I feel the same way, and that I'm just as terrified. Why terrified? Because I've never had anything this good before, and I keep waiting for it to be taken away. Elias stepped closer. I'm not taking it away. I'm not going anywhere. You can't promise that. Life happens. People die. Things change. You're right. I can't promise forever. But I can promise today, and tomorrow, and every day after that, until I can't promise anymore. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Is that enough? It has to be. Then let me make you another promise. His voice dropped low. I promise that as long as I'm breathing, you will never go back to feeling invisible. You will never go back to feeling unwanted. You will never go back to standing in a room with a sack over your head while men laugh at you. A sob broke from her throat. You are seen, Mara. You are wanted. You are... He stopped, swallowed hard. You are loved. Don't say that unless you mean it. I mean it. God help me, I mean it. And then, finally, after weeks of careful distance and hesitant touches, Elias pulled her into his arms and held her. Not like a man holding a woman he'd bought. Not like a man holding a housekeeper or a convenience. Like a man holding someone precious. Someone he'd choose again and again and again if given the chance. Mara buried her face in his chest and let herself cry for the girl she'd been standing in that trading post, for the woman she was becoming, for the future she was starting to believe might actually be possible. When she finally pulled back, Elias cupped her face in his calloused hands. "Can I kiss you?" Her heart stuttered. "Yes." He leaned down slowly, giving her time to change her mind to pull away, but she didn't. She rose up on her toes and met him halfway. The kiss was soft, tentative, a question and an answer all at once. When they broke apart, both of them were shaking. "Well," Mara whispered. "That was... yeah. So what now?" Elias smiled. "Now we go back inside before we freeze to death. And tomorrow we keep building this, whatever this is. A family. A family." He agreed. They went back inside hand in hand, and for the first time since Sarah had died, Elias felt like he could breathe again. The next few weeks passed in a blur of small moments that added up to something bigger than their parts. Micah started calling Mara by her name instead of her, or the lady. Small progress, but progress nonetheless. Elias started teaching Mara how to shoot his rifle. "In case something happens to me, you need to be able to protect yourself and Micah." She was a terrible shot, at first flinching every time she pulled the trigger. But slowly, with patient coaching, she improved. "Breathe in, hold, squeeze, don't pull. There." The can she was aiming at flew backward, struck clean through. "I did it." Mara turned to Elias, eyes bright with triumph. "You did. Do it again." She did, and again, until shooting became second nature. "Why does she need to learn?" Micah asked one evening, watching from the cabin window as Mara practiced. "Because the world's dangerous, son, and I won't always be here to protect her." "Where are you going?" "Nowhere. But accidents happen. Men get hurt. And if something happens to me, I need to know that you and Mara can survive without me." Micah's face went pale. "You're not going to die, are you?" "Not if I can help it. But I'm teaching you both these things because I love you. Because I want you to be ready for anything." The boy was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Teach me too." "Teach you what?" "How to shoot. How to protect Mara if something happens to you." Elias felt his throat tighten. "You're 6 years old." "So I'm strong. You said so yourself." "Micah." "Please, Papa. I want to help. I want to be useful." Elias looked at his son, this small, fierce boy who'd survived a fever that should have killed him, who was learning to accept a new woman in his life who was braver than any child should have to be. "All right, but we start small. No rifle until you're older. For now, I'll teach you how to set better traps, how to track animals, how to start a fire in the rain. Deal?" Micah's face lit up. Deal. So Elias began teaching his son the skills a mountain man needed. And Mara watched, her heart swelling with something she couldn't quite name. Pride, maybe. Or hope. Or the beginning of love so deep it scared her. One morning Mara woke to find Elias gone, and Micah sitting at the table drawing on a piece of bark with a chunk of charcoal. "Where's your papa?" "Went to check the far trap line. Said he'd be back by noon." Mara glanced at the window. The sun was barely up. "That's hours from now. You hungry?" "Always." She smiled and started making breakfast. While the porridge cooked, she glanced over at Micah's drawing. It was crude but clear. 3 stick figures standing in front of a small square house. A man, a woman, and a child. "That's good," Mara said softly. "Is that us?" Micah nodded, not looking up. "That's Papa, and that's you, and that's me. We look happy. We are happy, aren't we?" The question hit her square in the chest. "Yes, sweetheart, we are." "Good, because I don't want to go back to Aunt Margaret's anymore." Mara set down the spoon she was holding. "You don't..." "No, I like it here. with you and Papa. Even when we fight, even when it's cold and boring and you're stuck inside, even then. Micah finally looked up at her. Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you love my Papa? Mara's breath caught. This was the second time he'd asked her a hard question, and she knew she couldn't lie. Yes, I think I do. And do you love me? Yes, very much. Then can I call you Mama? The world stopped. Mara sank into the chair beside Micah, her legs suddenly unable to hold her. You want to call me Mama? Not instead of my first Mama. You'd be my second Mama. Is that okay? Tears streamed down Mara's face. That's yes. That's more than okay. That's... Her voice broke. I'd be honored. Micah studied her face. Why are you crying? Because I'm happy. Sometimes people cry when they're really, really happy. That's weird. Yeah, it is. Micah hesitated, then climbed out of his chair and wrapped his small arms around her neck. I love you, Mama. Mara held him tight, her whole body shaking with sobs she couldn't control. I love you too, Micah. So much. That was how Elias found them when he returned an hour later, Mara and Micah holding each other at the table, both crying, both smiling. What happened? Is someone hurt? No, Mara managed. We're fine. We're better than fine. Micah pulled away and looked at his father. Papa, I asked Mara if I could call her Mama. Is that okay? Elias went very still. His eyes moved from his son to Mara and back again. Is that what you want, Micah? Yes. And Mara, is that are you? Yes, Mara whispered. I'm okay with it. More than okay. Elias crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled them both into his arms. The 3 of them stood there locked together while outside the wind howled and inside the fire crackled, and everything felt impossibly perfectly right. We're a family, Micah said, his voice muffled against Elias's coat. A real family. We are, Elias said roughly. We really are. And Mara thought, this is what I've been searching for my whole life. Not a place, not safety, but this. People who see me and choose me anyway. That night, after Micah had fallen asleep, Elias pulled Mara aside. I need to go to town tomorrow. Why? Because I need to do this right. And to do it right, I need a ring. Mara's heart stopped. Elias, I know we said we'd take it slow, but Micah just called you Mama. And I've been carrying Sarah's ring around in my pocket for 3 years not knowing what to do with it. And today it hit me. She'd want you to have it. She'd want you to be part of this family. Officially. You want to marry me? I want to marry you, if you'll have me. But what about Micah? We said we'd wait until he was ready. He just called you Mama Mara. I think he's ready. She pressed her hands to her face. This is happening so fast. Too fast. I don't know. Maybe. Probably. But I don't care. She lowered her hands and looked at him. Yes. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I want to be your wife. Yes, to all of it. Elias let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. He pulled her close and kissed her deeper this time, with none of the hesitation of their first kiss. This was a promise, a commitment, a future being built with every heartbeat. When they broke apart, Elias rested his forehead against hers. I'm going to town at first light. I'll be back by nightfall. Can you and Micah manage without me for a day? We'll manage. If anything happens, nothing's going to happen. We'll be fine. But the next morning, when Elias rode away, Mara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. Something was coming. She could feel it in her bones. Some shift in the world that would test everything they'd built. She just didn't know what it was yet. The day passed slowly. Mara kept Micah busy with lessons teaching him to read from Elias's Bible. teaching him to measure flour and salt, teaching him the songs her mother had taught her. "Why do you keep looking at the window?" Micah asked. "I'm just checking the weather." "You're worried about Papa?" "A little." "He'll be fine. He always is." Mara wanted to believe that, but the chill in her bones wouldn't go away. When the sun began to set, and Elias still hadn't returned, her worry deepened. "He said he'd be back by nightfall," Micah said, voicing what Mara was thinking. "Maybe the snow slowed him down." "Maybe." They ate dinner in silence, then sat by the fire, both of them watching the door. An hour passed, then 2. "Something's wrong," Micah said. "We don't know that." "Yes, we do. Papa's never late. Never." Mara's hands shook as she added wood to the fire. "He probably just—" A sound outside. Hoofbeats. They both jumped up. Mara grabbed the rifle from above the door and moved to the window. Through the darkness, she could make out a horse approaching. But there were 2 figures on it, one slumped over, one sitting upright behind. "Micah, stay inside." "But—" "Stay inside." Mara threw open the door and stepped out into the cold, rifle raised. The horse stumbled to a stop. The figure in back slid down, a young man, maybe 20, with frost in his beard. "Please," he gasped. "Your husband, he's hurt. We need help." Mara's blood turned to ice. "Elias?" "He got kicked by a horse in town, hit his head. He's been in and out of consciousness for hours." The young man pulled Elias down from the horse. Elias's face was gray. His eyes closed, a gash across his forehead, still seeping blood. "Get him inside," Mara commanded, her voice steady, despite the terror clawing at her throat. "Micah, boil water. Get the clean cloths from the trunk. Move." They carried Elias to the bed. Mara's hands shook as she stripped off his coat, his shirt, checking for other injuries. "How did this happen?" "A spooked horse," the young man said. "Kicked out, caught him in the side of the head. He went down hard. The doctor in town patched him up as best he could, but said he needed to come home. Said his family could care for him better." "Who are you?" David Marsh. I work at the livery. Your husband's helped me out a few times, so I volunteered to bring him home." Mara nodded, barely hearing him. All her focus was on Elias, on his shallow breathing, on the gash that wouldn't stop bleeding, on the way he didn't respond when she said his name. "Elias. Elias, can you hear me?" "Nothing." "Papa?" Micah's voice cracked. "Papa, wake up." "Micah, the water. I need the water now." The boy ran to get it. Mara cleaned the wound as gently as she could, her hands steady now, her mind clicking through everything she'd ever learned about head injuries. "Keep him warm. Keep the wound clean. Watch for fever. Pray he wakes up." "Is he going to die?" Micah whispered. "No." Mara's voice was iron. "No, he's not going to die. I won't let him." David Marsh shifted uncomfortably. "I should head back. Storm's coming and—" "Thank you for bringing him home. There's stew on the stove if you're hungry, and you can sleep by the fire tonight. It's too dangerous to travel in the dark." The young man nodded gratefully and moved away from the bed. Mara pulled a chair close and sat, taking Elias's hand in hers. "You listen to me, Elias Ren," she said quietly. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to ask me to marry you and then leave me before I even get to say yes properly. You promised me today and tomorrow and every day after. So you wake up. You hear me? You wake up right now." But Elias didn't wake up. And as the night deepened and the storm David had predicted began to howl outside, Mara held tight to the hand of the man who'd saved her and prayed with everything she had that she'd get the chance to save him back. Micah fell asleep, curled against Mara's side around midnight, his small hand clutching her sleeve. She didn't move, didn't dare disturb him. The boy needed whatever peace he could find. David Marsh had long since dozed off by the fire, snoring softly. But Mara stayed awake, one hand holding Elias's, the other stroking Micah's hair. Every few minutes, she'd lean forward to check Elias's breathing, to press her palm against his forehead for signs of fever. "Please," she whispered into the darkness. "Please don't leave us. We just found each other. That's not enough time. That's not nearly enough time." Elias's face remained slack, unresponsive. Mara's throat tightened. She'd spent her whole life being invisible, being unwanted. And then Elias had seen her, had chosen her, had made her believe she was worth something. If he died now, what would happen to that belief? Would it die with him? "No," she said aloud, her voice fierce. "No, I won't let that happen. You taught me I was worth something, Elias Ren, and now I'm going to prove it by saving you." She gently extracted herself from Micah's grip and moved to the shelf where Elias kept his medical supplies. Bandages, needle and thread, a bottle of whiskey for cleaning wounds. She'd watched him treat injuries before: a cut from an axe, a burn from the stove. She knew the basics. But a head injury was different, more dangerous. She needed to keep the wound clean, watch for swelling, monitor his breathing. And pray. Always pray. She returned to the bed and carefully removed the blood-soaked bandage from Elias's head. The gash had finally stopped bleeding, but it was deep. It would scar. "You're going to have a story to tell when you wake up," she murmured, cleaning the wound again with whiskey-soaked cloth. "Micah will want to hear it 100 times. How his papa got kicked by a horse and lived to tell about it." She applied fresh bandages, her hand steady, despite the fear churning in her gut. Then she settled back into the chair and took his hand again. "I have so many things I need to tell you," she whispered. "Things I should have said before. Like how when you read from the Bible at night, I don't always hear the words. I just hear your voice, and it makes me feel safe. Or how when you smile at Micah, my heart does this stupid fluttering thing that I can't control. Or how every morning when I wake up and see you by the fire, I think this is real, this life is real, and I'm allowed to have it." Tears slid down her cheeks. "So you have to wake up, Elias. Because I need to say all those things to your face. I need to see you smile again. I need to watch you teach Micah how to be a good man. I need—" Her voice broke. "I need you." The hours crawled past. Mara dozed in fits and starts, jerking awake every time Elias's breathing changed, every time he moved. At some point, David Marsh woke and came to stand beside the bed. "How is he?" "The same. No better, no worse." "That's good, isn't it? If he was getting worse, we'd know by now." Mara wanted to believe that. Maybe. For what it's worth, the doctor said he thought Mr. Ren would pull through. Said he's tough as they come. He is tough. But even tough men can die. David shifted his weight. "Ma'am, I know we just met, but I can see how much you love him. And I saw how he talked about you in town before the accident. He said he was buying a ring. Said he'd found someone worth keeping." Fresh tears spilled over. "He told you that?" "He told everyone. Couldn't stop talking about you and his boy, how you'd made his house a home again." David smiled sadly. "So if you're worried he doesn't know how you feel, don't be. He knows." "Thank you," Mara whispered. David nodded and returned to his spot by the fire. As dawn broke, Micah stirred and sat up immediately, looking to the bed. Did he wake up? Not yet. The boy's face crumpled. What if he never wakes up? Mara pulled him close. He will. Your papa's the strongest man I know. He just needs time. How much time? I don't know, sweetheart, but we'll wait as long as it takes. Can I talk to him, even if he can't hear me? Of course you can. Micah climbed onto the bed and curled up next to his father, careful not to jostle him. Papa, it's me, Micah. I need you to wake up now. Mama and I... He paused, testing the word. Mama and I need you. We can't do this without you. Please, Papa. Please wake up. Mara watched through a blur of tears as the boy laid his head on his father's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. He's still in there, Micah said. I can hear him. Then we hold on to that. As long as his heart's beating, there's hope. They stayed like that through the morning, Mara in the chair, Micah on the bed, David keeping the fire going and making weak attempts at breakfast that nobody ate. Around midday, Elias's breathing changed. It grew shallower, more labored. Mara's heart lurched. No, 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 no. She pressed her hand to his forehead. It was burning. Fever, she said, her voice sharp with panic. David, I need cold water. Snow if you can get it. Micah, get me more cloths. Move. They sprang into action. Mara stripped the blankets off Elias and began wiping him down with cold water, trying to bring the fever down. But it climbed higher. His skin grew slick with sweat. He started to shake. What's happening? Micah's voice was high with fear. His body's fighting the injury. We need to help it. Mara worked frantically, changing cold compresses, keeping his wound clean, whispering prayers under her breath. Hours passed. The fever raged. And then, just as Mara was beginning to lose hope, Elias's eyes fluttered open. Mara! She nearly sobbed with relief. I'm here. I'm right here. Where? What happened? You got kicked by a horse, hit your head. You've been unconscious for almost a day. He tried to sit up, winced, and fell back against the pillow. Micah! I'm here, Papa. The boy crawled forward, his face streaked with tears. You're awake. You're really awake. Hey, son. Elias's voice was weak but warm. Sorry I scared you. You can't do that again, ever. Promise me. I promise. No more getting kicked by horses. Despite everything, Mara laughed. How do you feel? Like I got kicked by a horse. Elias reached for her hand. But I'll live. Thanks to you. I didn't do anything. You kept me alive. You and Micah both. His fingers tightened around hers. Did I hear Micah call you Mama? Mara glanced at the boy, who nodded. He asked if he could, yesterday morning before you left. I said yes. Something passed over Elias's face, joy mixed with grief, mixed with love so fierce it took her breath away. That's good, he said roughly. That's real good. Papa, you should rest, Micah said. Mama says you need to rest to get better. Mama's right. She usually is. Elias's eyes started to drift closed. But first, Mara, did I get the ring? Her heart stopped. What? The ring. Sarah's ring. Did I get it before the accident? I don't know. David brought you home. David? The young man appeared at the foot of the bed, holding out a small cloth pouch. This was in his coat pocket. I figured it was important. Mara took the pouch with shaking hands. Inside was a simple gold band with a small blue stone set in the center. That was Sarah's. Elias said, his voice fading. I want you to have it, if you'll still have me. Elias, you just woke up from a head injury. We can talk about this later. No, we talk about it now, because I almost died and I realized we don't get later. We only get now. He squeezed her hand. So I'm asking you now, will you marry me, Mara Lorne? Tears streamed down her face. You're delirious from the fever. I'm clear-headed for the first time in 3 years. Answer the question. Papa's waiting, Micah said, looking between them. Mara looked at this man who'd saved her, who'd seen her, who'd chosen her every single day since the moment they'd met. She looked at the boy who'd called her Mama. She looked at the ring, a dead woman's ring offered with love instead of guilt. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. Elias smiled, that full, unguarded smile she'd only seen once before. And then his eyes closed, and he was asleep. Mara sat there holding his hand, the ring clutched in her other palm, and let herself cry. Not from sadness or fear, but from overwhelming, impossible relief. Is Papa going to be okay? Micah asked quietly. Yes, sweetheart. He's going to be fine. The fever broke. He's just exhausted now. So we can keep him. Despite everything, Mara smiled. Yes, we can keep him. Micah threw his arms around her neck. I'm glad. Because I like being a family. Me too, Micah. Me too. David Marsh left the next morning heading back to town with Mara's gratitude and a pouch of silver coins Elias had insisted he take. Tell the doctor he was right, Mara said. Tell him Elias pulled through. I will, ma'am, and congratulations on the engagement. Thank you for everything. She watched him right away, then turned back to the cabin where Elias was sleeping and Micah was keeping watch. The next few days were a delicate balance. Elias was weak, needing help to stand, to eat, to do anything beyond sleep. His head pounded constantly. The light hurt his eyes, but he was alive, and slowly, painfully, he was healing. Mara and Micah cared for him the way he'd cared for them. They brought him food, changed his bandages, read to him when he couldn't sleep. They took turns sitting with him, making sure he was never alone. I'm not used to being the one who needs taking care of, Elias grumbled one afternoon. Get used to it, Mara said, spooning broth into his mouth. Because you're not getting out of that bed until the doctor says you can. The doctor's in town. He's not here. Then you're staying put until I say you can get up. Since when are you in charge? Since you asked me to marry you. That makes me your partner. Partners get a say. Elias studied her face, then smiled. Fair enough. Besides, Micah's worried. If you push too hard too fast and hurt yourself again, he'll never forgive either of us. Where is Micah? Checking the snares like you taught him. He wanted to help, wanted to feel useful. He's a good boy. He's your son. Of course he's good. Elias reached for her hand. Mara, about the ring. We don't have to talk about it now. Yes, we do. Because I need you to understand something. When I gave you Sarah's ring, it wasn't because I don't have the money to buy you a new one. It was because... He paused, searching for words. It was because Sarah would have wanted you to have it. She told me once that if she died, she wanted me to find someone who'd love Micah the way she did. Someone who'd make our house a home again. And that's you, Mara. That's what you've done. I'm not her. I know you're not. And I'm not asking you to be. I'm asking you to be you. The woman who stood up to those men at the trading post just by surviving. The woman who learned to shoot a rifle even though she was terrified. The woman who held my hand through a fever and refused to let me die. Mara's eyes filled. I was so scared. I know. But you didn't run. You stayed. You fought for me the way I fought for you. That's what partners do. Is that what we are, partners? I hope so, because I don't want to do this life without you anymore. She leaned forward and kissed him, gentle, careful of his injury, but full of promise. When she pulled back, Elias was smiling. So when should we do this? Get married, I mean. You're asking me? You're the bride. You get to choose. Mara thought about it. Spring. When the snow melts and the flowers bloom. When Micah's completely healthy and you're healed. When we can stand outside under the sky and say our vows without freezing. Spring. Elias agreed. I can wait till spring. As long as you're here. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? I promise. They sealed it with another kiss, and outside the window winter raged on, but inside the cabin spring was already beginning to bloom. Over the next week, Elias regained his strength. He graduated from broth to solid food, from bed to chair, from chair to standing. The headaches faded. The dizziness passed. The wound on his forehead scabbed over, healing into a scar that Micah traced with fascinated fingers. Does it hurt? Not anymore. Your lucky papa has a thick skull, Mara said, bringing him a cup of coffee. Otherwise, that kick would have killed you. I've always been hard-headed. Sarah used to say so. It was the first time he'd mentioned Sarah casually, without grief weighing down every word. Mara smiled. She was right. She usually was. That evening, after Micah had gone to bed, Elias asked Mara to sit with him by the fire. "I need to tell you something. About Sarah." Mara's stomach tightened. "All right." "When she died, I thought I'd never feel anything again. Thought that part of me died with her. And for 3 years I was right. I went through the motions, took care of Micah, kept us alive. But I wasn't living. I was just surviving." "I understand. And then I met you. And suddenly I was feeling things again. Anger when those men laughed at you. Protectiveness when I brought you home. Fear when you looked at me like I might hurt you. Hope when you smiled at Micah." He took her hand. "It scared me. How much I started to feel. How quickly you became important to me." "Elias, let me finish. When I was lying in that bed unconscious, I had dreams. And in those dreams, Sarah came to me." Mara went still. "She told me it was okay. That loving you didn't mean forgetting her. That my heart was big enough for both of you. And she said," his voice caught, "she said thank you. For keeping her promise. For finding someone who'd love Micah. For not giving up on happiness." Tears slid down Mara's cheeks. "So I need you to know, when I asked you to marry me, it wasn't because I need someone to cook and clean. It wasn't because Micah needs a mother. It was because I love you, Mara. Because you make me want to be a better man. Because when I look at you, I see my future. And I want that future more than I've wanted anything in a long time." "I love you too," Mara whispered. "I didn't know I could feel this way. Didn't know it was possible. But you taught me. You and Micah both." Elias pulled her close, and she rested her head on his shoulder. "We're going to be good at this," he said. "This marriage, this family. We're going to make it work. How do you know? Because we've already survived the hard part. We've both lost people. We've both been broken. We've both learned what it means to keep going when you want to give up. So if we can survive all that, we can survive anything." Mara thought about the girl she'd been standing in that trading post with a sack over her head. She thought about the woman she was becoming, stronger, braver, more sure of herself with every passing day. "You're right," she said. "We can survive anything. Together. Together." They sat like that for a long time, watching the fire burn down to embers, listening to Micah's soft breathing from the bed. And Mara thought, this is what home feels like. Not a place, but a feeling. The feeling of being exactly where you're supposed to be, with the people you're supposed to be with. The feeling of being seen, being chosen, being loved. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't waiting for it to be taken away. She was just letting herself have it. 2 weeks after the accident, Elias was back to his normal routine. He checked trap lines, chopped wood, repaired things that broke. But he was different now. More careful. More present. He'd kiss Mara goodbye before heading out. He'd ruffle Micah's hair and tell him he loved him. He'd come home and tell stories about his day instead of eating in silence. It was like the accident had shaken something loose in him, had reminded him that life was precious and short and not to be wasted. One evening, as they were cleaning up after dinner, Elias said, "I've been thinking." "About what?" "About the wedding, about spring." "What about it?" "I don't want to wait." Mara stopped washing dishes. "What?" "I don't want to wait till spring. I want to marry you now. This week if we can." "Elias, you just recovered from a head injury. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking clearer than I ever have. Mara, I almost died. And the whole time I was unconscious, all I could think was, I didn't marry her yet. I didn't make it official. What if she changes her mind? What if something happens and we never get the chance?" "Nothing's going to happen. You don't know that. None of us know that. So I'm asking, Can we do this now? Can we say our vows and make this real before something else goes wrong? Mara stared at him. You're serious? Dead serious. But there's no preacher here. No witnesses, except Micah. We don't need a preacher. We just need each other and God, and the words we say. Elias took her hands. In the eyes of the law, maybe it won't count. But in the eyes of God, and in my heart, it'll be real. More real than anything I've ever done. Mara's heart raced. And Micah? I already asked him. He said yes. You asked him? This morning while you were getting water, he's excited. Says he's never been to a wedding before. Tears pricked Mara's eyes. You really want to do this? I really do. So what do you say? Will you marry me tonight, right here in this cabin with our son as witness? Mara looked around the cabin, the home they'd built together, the life they were creating, the future spreading out before them like an unwritten book. Yes, she whispered. Let's get married tonight. Elias's face split into the biggest smile she'd ever seen. Micah, come here, son. The boy scrambled out of bed. Is it time? It's time. They gathered by the fire, Elias in his cleanest shirt, Mara in the blue dress she'd been saving, Micah bouncing with excitement. Do you know what to say? Micah asked his father. I know enough. Elias took Mara's hands and looked into her eyes. Mara Lorne, I don't have fancy words. I'm not a preacher or a poet. I'm just a man who's lived through loss and learned what it means to find something worth keeping. And you're worth keeping. You're worth fighting for. You're worth every promise I'm about to make. Tears streamed down Mara's face. I promise to love you on the good days and the hard days. I promise to see you even when you try to hide. I promise to choose you every morning for the rest of my life. I promise to be your partner, your friend, your shelter in the storm. And I promise that you'll never ever feel invisible again. Mara could barely speak through her tears. I don't have fancy words either. I'm just a girl who spent her whole life thinking she wasn't worth anything. And then you showed me I was wrong. You saw me when I was hidden. You chose me when no one else would. You made me believe I deserved to be loved. She took a shaky breath. So I promise to love you with everything I have. I promise to take care of you and Micah. I promise to be brave when you need me to be. I promise to build this life with you, whatever that looks like. And I promise that I'll never ever take this for granted. What we have is precious, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of it. You're already worthy, Elias said roughly. You always have been. He slipped Sarah's ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. I now pronounce us married, Micah announced solemnly. You can kiss her, Papa. Elias laughed and pulled Mara close. Their kiss was soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Micah threw his arms around both of them. We're really a family now, he said. A real official family. We were always a real family, Mara said, holding him tight. But yes, now it's official. They stood there, the three of them locked together, while the fire crackled and the wind howled outside, and everything felt impossibly perfectly right. And Mara thought I was bought for 3 silver coins by a stranger at a trading post. And somehow that terrible moment led to this beautiful one. Led to love and family and home. Maybe the world's cruelest moments really do lead to the gentlest hearts. Maybe that's how grace works. Taking the broken pieces and making them whole. Making them beautiful. Winter began to loosen its grip in late February. The snow still fell, but softer now. The wind still howled, but without the same bitter edge. And inside the cabin, life had settled into something that felt almost like peace. Mara woke each morning to find Elias already up, building the fire, his movements quiet so as not to wake her or Micah. She'd watch him from beneath her blankets, this man who was now her husband, in every way that mattered, and feel gratitude so deep it ached. I know you're awake, Elias said one morning without turning around. How? Your breathing changes. Has since the first week you were here. Mara sat up, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. You've been paying that much attention. I pay attention to everything about you. He turned to face her, smiling. Can't help it. She crossed to him, and he pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. How'd you sleep? Better than I ever have. Good. Because we've got a full day ahead. Micah wants to check the trap lines with me, and I figured you could come along. Make it a family outing. A family outing in the snow. Best kind there is. Mara laughed. You're ridiculous. And you love me anyway. I do. God help me, I really do. They woke Micah, who bounced out of bed with the energy only children possess. Over breakfast, he chattered about which traps they'd check first, what animals they might find, whether they'd see any deer tracks. You're going to scare away every animal in a 5-mile radius, Elias said, but he was smiling. I can be quiet when I need to be. Since when? Since right now. Micah pressed his lips together dramatically, puffing out his cheeks. Mara and Elias exchanged glances, both trying not to laugh. They bundled up and headed out into a world transformed. The sun was actually shining, turning the snow into a field of diamonds. Icicles hung from the trees like crystal chandeliers. Micah ran ahead, leaving a trail of footprints. He's happy, Mara said. He is, thanks to you. Thanks to us. We did this together. Elias took her hand, and they walked in comfortable silence, following their son through the trees. The first trap held a rabbit. The second was empty. The third had been sprung, but whatever had been caught had escaped. Smart critter, Elias muttered, resetting it. They were checking the fourth trap when Micah suddenly went still. Papa, look! Elias straightened, following his son's gaze. In the clearing ahead stood a massive buck antlers, spread wide breath, steaming in the cold air. Don't move, Elias whispered. They all froze. The buck stared at them for a long moment, then turned and bounded away, disappearing into the trees. Did you see that? Micah's voice was hushed with awe. Did you see how big it was? I saw. Have you ever seen one that big before? Once, years ago with your mother. Mara watched Elias's face carefully, waiting for the grief to cloud his eyes the way it used to whenever he mentioned Sarah. But it didn't come. There was sadness, yes, but also something else. Acceptance, maybe. Peace. What did Mama say when she saw it? Micah asked. She said it was a sign. That big, beautiful things could survive even in the harshest places. That if the buck could make it through winter after winter, so could we. Was she right? Elias looked at Mara, then at his son. Yeah, she was right. They finished checking the traps and headed home. Micah running ahead again, reenacting the moment he'd seen the buck for imaginary audiences. He's going to tell that story for years, Mara said. Probably. Kid loves a good story. Wonder where he gets that from. Elias grinned. His mother. Sarah could spin a tale like nobody's business. Tell me one. What? Tell me one of her stories. I want to know her better. Through you and Micah. Elias was quiet for a moment, then he began to speak. There was this one she used to tell Micah at bedtime. About a mountain that fell in love with the sky. The mountain wanted to touch the sky, but no matter how tall it grew, the sky was always just out of reach. So the mountain asked the wind for help. And the wind said, "You can't reach the sky by growing taller. You have to let the sky come to you." So the mountain stopped trying to grow, and instead just stood tall and steady. And eventually the clouds came down to rest on the mountain's peak. And that's how the mountain and the sky finally touched. Mara's throat tightened. That's beautiful. She had a gift for making everything sound beautiful, even the hard things. I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you. You're strong like her, stubborn like her, kind like her. I'm nothing like her. You're more like her than you know. And that's not a bad thing, Mara. It's a good thing. It means Micah gets to have two mothers who love him. Two women who'd do anything to protect him. Tears pricked Mara's eyes. You really mean that? Every word. That night, after Micah had fallen asleep, Elias pulled out his Bible and began to read. But halfway through the passage he stopped. What's wrong? Mara asked. Nothing's wrong. I want to say something first. All right. He set the Bible down and took her hands. When Sarah died, I stopped reading this book for a long time. Couldn't make sense of why God would take someone so good so young. Couldn't understand what the point of faith was if prayer couldn't save the people you loved. Elias. But then you came along, and you reminded me that faith isn't about getting what you want. It's about trusting that even in the worst moments, there's still grace, still mercy, still love. His voice roughened. You saved me, Mara. Not just from loneliness or grief. You saved me from losing my faith entirely. I didn't do anything. You did everything. You showed up, you stayed. You loved us when we didn't know how to love ourselves anymore. That's grace. That's mercy. That's what faith looks like when it's actually lived, instead of just talked about. Mara couldn't speak, could only nod and hold his hands tighter. So, when I read from this book now, Elias continued, I'm not reading out of obligation or habit. I'm reading because I believe it again, because I understand it again, because of you. I love you, Mara whispered. I love you so much it scares me. Good. Love should scare you a little. Means it's real. He picked up the Bible again and began to read, and Mara listened with her whole heart. The next morning, Mara woke to find Elias gone and a note on the table. Went to check the far trap line. Be back by noon. Love you. E. She smiled and tucked the note into her pocket, then set about making breakfast. Micah emerged from bed rubbing his eyes. Where's Papa? Checking traps. He'll be back soon. Can we make biscuits? The kind with honey? We can try. I've never made biscuits before. Really? Really? My mother never taught me. Then I'll teach you. Mama? My first mama, she taught me before she died. Mara's heart squeezed. You remember that? Some of it. I remember standing on a chair so I could reach the table. And I remember her hands on mine, showing me how to fold the dough. That's a good memory to have. Yeah. Micah climbed onto a chair. Come on, I'll show you. For the next hour, Mara learned how to make biscuits from a 6-year-old boy who remembered his mother's hands. And when they pulled the golden biscuits from the oven, slightly lopsided, but smelling like heaven, they both cried a little. She'd be proud of you, Mara said. You think so? I know so. You're teaching me something she taught you. That's how love works. It gets passed down even after people are gone. Micah nodded solemnly. I'm going to teach my kids someday, when I grow up and have a family. You're going to be a good papa, just like yours. And you'll be a good grandma. Mara laughed through her tears. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. You're 6. But when I'm older, when you're older, yes, I'll be the best grandma I can be. They heard hoofbeats outside. Elias was back. He came through the door, stamping snow off his boots, then stopped when he saw the biscuits cooling on the table. Did you two do this? Micah taught me, using his first mama's recipe. Something passed over Elias's face, surprise maybe, or gratitude, or love so deep it couldn't be named. Can I have one? He asked, his voice thick. They're for you, Micah said. We made them special. Elias sat down at the table, and Micah brought him a biscuit drizzled with honey. He took a bite, closed his eyes. Tastes just like hers. That's what I was going for. You did good, son. Real good. They ate together, the 3 of them, and Mara thought, this is what healing looks like. Not forgetting the people you've lost, but letting their love live on through the people still here. March arrived with warmer winds and longer days. The snow began to melt in earnest, revealing brown earth and dead grass, and the promise of green things to come. "Spring's almost here," Elias said one evening standing at the window. "It is," Mara agreed. "You still want a spring wedding, a real one with a preacher and witnesses. Do you?" "I asked you first." Mara thought about it, about the vows they'd already spoken by firelight, about the ring on her finger that she'd worn every day since, about the life they were already living as husband and wife. "No," she said finally. "I don't need another wedding. What we did, that was real. That was ours. That's enough." Elias crossed to her and pulled her into his arms. "You sure?" "I'm sure. Besides, I'd rather spend the money on supplies, on things we actually need. Practical to the end. Someone has to be." He kissed her, and she melted into him, still marveling at the fact that she was allowed this. That this man, this life, this love, it was hers to keep. "Mama, Papa, come look." They broke apart and hurried to where Micah stood at the door, pointing outside. The first wildflowers had pushed through the snow, tiny purple blooms, fragile and impossibly brave. "Spring's here," Micah said, his face glowing. "It's really here." They stepped outside together, the three of them, and stood looking at those small flowers that had survived the winter, that had waited beneath the snow for their moment to bloom. "It's beautiful," Mara whispered. "It is," Elias agreed. "But you know what's more beautiful?" "What?" "The fact that we made it. Through the winter, through the hard days, through everything. We made it together." Mara looked at him, at Micah, at the flowers pushing through the frozen ground, at the cabin behind them that had become home, at the mountains that had witnessed their story. "We did. We really did." Over the next few weeks, the world transformed. The snow melted entirely. Grass sprouted, trees budded, birds returned, filling the air with song. And in town, people started talking about the mountain man who'd married the sack-faced girl. About how she'd turned out to be beautiful after all. About how they'd built a life together that most people only dreamed of. "Let them talk," Elias said when Mara told him. "We know the truth." "What's the truth?" "That it was never about what you looked like under that sack. It was about who you were, who you are, and who you're becoming." "And who am I becoming?" "The strongest woman I know. A mother, a wife, a survivor. My partner in all things." Mara smiled. "I like the sound of that." One warm afternoon in late April, they made the trip to town together. They needed supplies, and Micah wanted to see his Aunt Margaret. As they rode through the streets, Mara saw people staring, whispering, pointing. "Ignore them," Elias said quietly. "I'm not bothered. Let them look. I have nothing to be ashamed of." And she meant it. The girl who'd stood in that trading post with a sack over her head was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her worth, who'd been seen and chosen and loved. At the general store, the merchant who'd sold her greeted them warily. "Mr. Ren, Mrs. Ren, what can I do for you?" "Just here for supplies." Elias said, his voice neutral but not friendly. They gathered what they needed while the merchant watched. When they went to pay, he said, "I heard you two got married." "We did." "Well, congratulations." "Thank you," Mara said, meeting his eyes directly. "Though I'm surprised you remember me. After all, I was just the sack-faced girl nobody wanted." The merchant had the grace to look ashamed. "Yes, well, that was... I apologize for that day. It was unkind." "It was, but I'm not angry anymore. You see, that terrible day led to the best thing that ever happened to me. So in a strange way, I should thank you." "Thank me?" "For being cruel, because it meant Elias heard what you said, and his kindness shone all the brighter against your cruelty." The merchant didn't know what to say to that. Elias handed over the payment, and they left without another word. Outside, Micah was waiting with Margaret, who hugged Mara tight. "Look at you," she said, holding Mara at arm's length. "You're glowing." "I'm happy. I can see that. And Micah, he's so healthy now. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. We're just loving him, that's all." Margaret's eyes filled. "That's everything. That's what Sarah would have wanted." They visited for an hour, catching up on town gossip, on Micah's progress, on the plans Elias and Mara had for the summer. And when they finally said goodbye and headed home, Mara felt lighter than she had in years. "That went well," Elias said. "It did, though I'm glad we don't have to do it often." "Agreed. I prefer our mountain to their town any day." "Me too." That night, as they lay by the fire, Micah asleep in the bed, the two of them wrapped in blankets, Elias said, "Do you ever miss it?" "Miss what?" "Your old life. Before me, before all this. Do you ever wish things had gone differently?" Mara thought about her uncle's barn, about the cold and the hunger and the constant fear, about the years of being invisible, being told she was worthless. "No," she said firmly. "Not for a single second. Not even on the hard days. Especially not on the hard days. Because even our worst day here is better than my best day was back then. I'm glad. Because I can't imagine this life without you anymore. Good. Because you're stuck with me now. Promise. Promise." He pulled her closer, and they lay there listening to the fire crackle, and Micah breathe, and the wind move through the trees outside. And Mara thought about how far she'd come. From a girl with a sack over her head to a woman who knew her own strength. From someone who'd never been chosen to someone who was chosen every single day. It had been a long journey. A hard journey. But it had been worth it. Every step. Summer arrived in full force, bringing long days and warm nights and work that never seemed to end. But it was good work, purposeful work, the kind that left you tired but satisfied. Mara learned to tend a garden, coaxing vegetables from the rocky soil. Micah grew taller, stronger, more confident. And Elias became the man he'd been before grief had hollowed him out. They laughed more, fought occasionally, but always made up before bed. Built a life that was messy and imperfect and absolutely beautiful. One evening in late July, as the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Elias took Mara's hand. "Come with me. I want to show you something." They walked away from the cabin up a small rise that overlooked the valley. From here they could see for miles mountains in every direction, the river cutting through the trees below their cabin, small but sturdy in the distance. "This is where I came after Sarah died," Elias said quietly. "When the grief got too heavy to carry, I'd stand up here and try to understand why. Why her? Why us? Why any of it?" "Did you ever find an answer?" "No. But I found something better." "What?" "Acceptance. The understanding that I couldn't change what happened. I could only decide what to do next." He turned to face her. "And what I decided to do next was keep living. For Micah, for myself, and eventually for you." Tears slid down Mara's cheeks. "You gave me a reason to hope again," Elias continued. "You and Micah both. You reminded me that life doesn't end with loss. It just changes shape. Becomes something different. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, it becomes something even better than what you had before." "Do you really believe that?" "I do. Because what we have now, this family, this life, it's built on the ashes of what came before. Sarah's love for me taught me how to love you. Your strength taught me how to be strong again. Micah's resilience taught us both how to keep going." He cupped her face in his hands. "So yes, I believe that the world's cruelest moments can lead to the gentlest hearts. I believe that broken people can become whole again. And I believe that love isn't a finite resource. It's infinite. It grows and changes and adapts. And when you let it, it heals everything it touches." Mara couldn't speak. could only nod and let him hold her while the sun set behind them, and the world grew soft with twilight. "Thank you," she finally whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. For choosing me. For teaching me that I was worth loving." "You were always worth loving, Mara. I just helped you see what was already there." They stood on that hill until the stars came out, and then they walked back to the cabin hand in hand. Micah was waiting for them, bouncing with excitement. "Mama, Papa, look what I found." He held up a small bird's nest, empty but perfect. "Where'd you find that?" "By the creek. The birds must have left when their babies grew up." "That's exactly what happened," Elias said. Micah turned the nest over in his hands. "Do you think the babies remember their nest when they're all grown up and flying on their own? I think they remember the feeling of being safe, of being loved, and they carry that with them wherever they go." Micah nodded thoughtfully. "Like how I remember Mama, my first Mama." "Exactly like that." The boy looked at Mara. "And someday when I'm grown up and have my own family, I'll remember you too. Both of you. I'll remember how you loved me." Mara knelt down and pulled him close. "And we'll remember you. Every day of our lives we'll remember this. All of it." That night, after Micah had fallen asleep, clutching the bird's nest, Elias and Mara sat by the fire one last time. "Do you think we've done right by him?" Mara asked. "I know we have. Look at him. He's happy, he's healthy, he's loved. What more could we ask for? Nothing. Absolutely nothing." They sat in comfortable silence, and Mara thought about the journey that had brought her here, about the trading post and the burlap sack and the 3 silver coins that had bought her freedom, about the man who'd seen past the sack to the person underneath, about the boy who'd learned to call her Mama, about the life they'd built together from nothing but hope and determination and love. It wasn't a fairy tale. There had been hard days, would be more hard days ahead, but it was real, and it was theirs, and that made it perfect. "Elias," she said softly. "Yeah. If you could go back to that day at the trading post, would you do anything differently?" He thought about it for a long moment. "No," he said finally. "I wouldn't change a single thing, because every choice I made led me here, to you, to us, and I wouldn't trade this for anything." "Me neither." They sat together as the fire burned low, 2 people who'd been broken and made whole, who'd been lost and found their way home. And in the morning, when the sun rose over the mountains and a new day began, they'd face it together. The way they'd face every day for the rest of their lives. Together. Because some love arrives quiet without vows or gold, only 2 hearts brave enough to see beyond the scars. And sometimes the world's cruelest moments lead to the gentlest hearts, to the strongest bonds, to the kind of love that doesn't just survive, it transforms everything it touches. Mara had been bought for 3 silver coins, but what she'd found was priceless. A man who saw her worth, a boy who called her Mama, and a life that proved she'd always been worthy of love. She just needed someone brave enough to show her.